The interwebs is filled with a ton of creepypastas. Whether you're looking for traditional horror ones the likes of Slender Man or Jeff the Killer, or if you're looking for urban legends inspired by pop culture icons, there's a plethora for your entertainment that exist online. Today, we are taking another look at Pokemon creepypastas, and this time dabbling into some that you've likely never encountered. We dug deep, my friends. Today, we are bringing you the top 10 Pokemon creepypastas you've never heard of. Now, some of them are set in the world of Pokemon, and others in our world pertaining to Pokemon. So with that in mind, let's get to it, friends. And at number 10, Psyduck. Do you know how Psyduck has that look to it? How it seems to stare off into space sometimes? As this creepypasta shares with us, the reason for Psyduck's bewildered behavior is actually a result of something much more sinister. According to this tragic tale, Psyducks were experimented on a long time ago, with scientists striving to unlock the secrets of the breed's psychic powers. But, as you can imagine, when it comes to creepypastas, the experiment didn't go as planned. The more scientists learned about Psyducks, the more they began to develop a theory that Psyducks had a deep inner power that was dangerous if not regulated by some means. So, that's what they did. They captured droves and droves of Psyducks and lobotomized them to ensure that they wouldn't be a threat to anyone. And by the time they evolved, the Pokemon would have much better control over its abilities. But now, sometimes when Psyducks have large outbursts of panic or other stressful emotions, those massive psychic powers the scientists were trying to control can be let loose, with disastrous effects. Up next, number 9, Trapped. Have you ever wondered what the inside of a Pokeball is like for your Pokemon? Well, this creepypasta aimed to answer that question. It tells the story of an incident between two Pokemon trainers. They were the best of pals, but one day, they got into an argument over something incidental, and one of the trainers, out of rage, just lobbed an empty Pokeball at his friend's head. To both of their shock, the Pokeball opened up and did the unthinkable. It captured the other trainer. Panicking, the first trainer tried to lob the ball around and release his friend, but nothing happened. He took the ball to a well-known Pokemon doctor and professor who had her team examine it. And despite running test after test on the Pokeball, they concluded that it was merely an empty Pokeball. What the hell? There was nothing they could do, and many of the scientists on this professor's team just thought the unnerved trainer made up this story about their friend. Years passed. Eventually, the trainer lost track of this empty Pokeball, and it found its way into the hands of a new trainer, who attempted to use it to catch Pokemon. But every time they used it to catch a Pokemon, within days the ball would be empty again, as if the creature never existed. No one could figure it out, except the only person who really knew why it was happening? The trainer trapped inside the Pokeball. Turns out, the kinds of tech that existed at the time could only recognize Pokemon signatures within the ball, not human ones. Pokeballs are not made for humans, and the fact that this trainer even got stuck inside one was a once-in-a-lifetime fluke at best. So, they were never detected when any of these doctors ran tests on the ball, just stuck in there for eternity. Each time the new trainer caught a Pokemon, the trapped trainer would struggle to fight it. It would kill it, and then eat it, practically starving in this ceaseless captivity. Dark. And at number 8, The Lavender Town Murderer. Here we have a new take on a typical Lavender Town themed creepypasta. Now, you've likely heard the Lavender Town Syndrome creepypasta, where children who played the first Pokemon games in Japan became ill or killed themselves after hearing the high frequencies in the Lavender Town theme music. Now, this one is a different spin on it. Children still die in this story, but not just from listening to the music. As the story goes, a bunch of children were disappearing within and around a popular downtown core. Police were unable to connect the crimes, aside from the fact that they were all around the ages of 8 to 12. As the police investigated further, one detective noticed another similarity. All of these children were seemingly big Pokemon fans, and their parents had recently bought them the game. Now, this is back in the era of Pokemon Red and Blue in North America. Many kids owned the game, so it didn't seem like it was really relevant to these children's disappearances. But soon, the remains of those children started showing up, with their bodies being found next to blood-scrawled messages that read, "Gotta catch them all." It was later revealed that this serial killer was targeting children using the Lavender Town theme to lure them into isolated areas before slitting their throats and writing in their blood. So why did they do it? Well, no one ever found out. But be careful. Next time you hear the Lavender Town theme in public, make sure you walk the other way. At least if you're, an 8 to 12-year-old. And at number 7, Torturous Creatures. A lot of these creepypastas on our list paint a much darker version of the world of Pokemon, from its pocket monsters to its trainers, and what those two forces combined can do. Case in point, this story. A young female trainer was raped in her youth. Years later, coping with the trauma, she discovered who her rapist was. And she decides, rather than going to the police, the best way to get revenge is to take matters into her own hands. She tracks this horrible man down and in the middle of the night breaks into his home. He lives alone, of course. She enters his bedroom. She uses her Butterfree to paralyze the man, and when that's done, done, she ties him up, using her Machop to drag him down to his basement. He's awake now, eyes open but unmoving, entirely paralyzed. Once down in the basement, she summons her Pikachu, who she then uses to electrify the criminal over and over again, nearly killing him, but never giving him his death. Death would be too much of a mercy. As the legend goes, she kept this up for days, but finally a neighbor overheard the man's screams when his paralysis wore off one time, before the trainer could summon her Butterfree again. The police broke into the house, but she managed to escape capture. Now she goes around to other horrible men's homes, ones who have wronged other women like her, and tortures them with her Pokemon. Moral of the story? Don't be a person. And at number 6, the Scyther accident. Have you ever wondered if it would be dangerous to train or own a Pokemon whose physicality could gravely harm you? Well, that's a question that this young trainer, a boy of 15, wanted to find out. He set out on his peculiar quest, heading out to become a Pokemon master at an age his parents deemed too young, despite it being a common occurrence. Now, eventually during his travels, he made his way to the Safari Zone, where he set out to find one very specific Pokemon, a Scyther, a creature who had blades for hands. Now, this trainer was fascinated by Scythers and had always wanted one since he was a toddler, despite the obvious dangers that training one may pose. Finally, after multiple attempts at searching in the Safari Zone, he came face to face with a Scyther. He tossed a stone at Scyther. Scyther did nothing, although it did look annoyed. So the trainer tossed another stone, this time harder. And what happened? The Scyther attacked him, but attacked him in a way that he was horrified by. It went for his hands. He lay there on his back screaming as the Scyther swung its green arms through the air, its blades chopping off the trainer's own hands. And he never caught another Pokemon again. And at number 5, why is Gyarados always angry? Gyarados, the flying water Pokemon, is notoriously grumpy, and that's putting it nicely. It's constantly associated with rage, which many find wonderfully ironic considering its placated pre-evolution form, Magikarp. Many have wondered how Magikarp could possibly evolve into a creature like Gyarados. Now, this creepypasta attempts to explain that dynamic, and of course, do it in a way that is quite traumatic for poor little Magikarp. Oh. Now, according to this legend, Gyarados is actually a demonic entity trapped inside of Magikarp. Similar to our Psyduck creepypasta earlier on in this list, scientists worked to keep Magikarp's more destructive tendencies at bay, which just turned its mind to mush. It backfired exponentially though. After meddling with the breed, they soon discovered that their genetic experimentation on it caused it to have an evolution, and when it evolved, its demonic nature became tangible in the form of Gyarados, a creature significantly more difficult to handle than, little Magikarp. This is why only the most skilled trainers are capable of taming Gyarados, and usually ones that show humility and kindness to it as well, to soothe that demon. And personally, I don't know if I believe that one, but makes for an interesting story. And at number 4, don't mistreat your Pokemon. This number is a little similar to one of the other previous creepypastas on our list, but the perpetrator in this one has a very different ambition in mind. It tells the legend of a dark, mysterious figure who roams around the world of Pokemon, seeking out trainers who have mistreated their Pokemon. While they don't target organizations the likes of Team Rocket, they do seek out individuals who allegedly harmed their Pokemon or treat them in an indignant way. As the legend goes, the shadowy vigilante would travel to the homes of trainers, breaking into their houses while they slept in the middle of the night. They would sneak into their bedrooms, shoot them point blank with a gun equipped with a silencer, then quietly release their Pokemon, setting them free or returning them to their Pokeballs and anonymously dropping them off at shelters. Now, some people say the work this mystery character did was cruel and uncalled for. Others, who had seen the condition of some of these Pokemon that they rescued, call this vigilante a true hero. But regardless of whether you believe it or not, you must keep something in mind. Don't mistreat your Pokemon, or else you might be on the receiving end of this vigilante justice. And at number 3, the Pokedex. Pokedexes are cool pieces of technology. They're one of the coolest accessories to come out of the Pokemon franchise. But this creepypasta explores a more sinister version of that beloved device. It's a Pokedex that starts detecting humans. Not only is this Pokedex capable of reading who the person is that you point it to, it reveals the person's name, date of birth, address, all the basic details, it also reveals their most hidden secrets. Now, as this story goes, a young trainer was given a Pokedex when he began his journey as a trainer. It worked as you'd normally expect it to, but one night, he was goofing around with it and pointed it at a trainer friend of his that he met on his travels. Lo and behold, to his surprise, his Pokedex revealed a bunch of details about his friend, and in the description of his friend it read, "He occasionally wets the bed." The next morning, our protagonist brought it up to his friend, who embarrassingly admitted that the Pokedex was telling the truth. Thus began a series of shenanigans where the two went around reading people on this Pokedex, uncovering their darkest secrets. But one day, it would come to bite him in the butt. Our protagonist was summoned home. His father was ill and things were not looking good, so he came home to spend time with his sickly dad. Shortly after he arrived, his father passed away. In his grief, he lingered around his hometown for a few days. Curiosity got the best of him and he decided to use his Pokedex on people he knew, including his mother. To his horror, her description read that she murdered her husband. The trainer then smashed his Pokedex, never wanting to face the truth. Up next at number 2, Pokemon are humans. Here's one for those of you who are fans of Detective Pikachu. This creepypasta tells the tale of how Pokemon came to be. They didn't start out as creatures. Instead, they were human once. And after the Great War, the one Lieutenant Surge references in the games, they were transformed into Pokemon thanks to horrific experimentation. Victims of the war and prisoners were tossed into chambers where scientists transformed them, toying with their DNA, conducting tests to see if the human consciousness could be transferred into animals. Through all of this metamorphosizing and cruelty, Pokemon emerged, with individual human spirits trapped inside of them. This is why Pokemon have a greater capacity for emotion and empathy compared to regular animals. Oof, eerie stuff. And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Pokemon Go crime scene. Now you guys have heard all the stories about Pokemon Go players accidentally wandering into restricted areas while attempting to find and catch Pokemon, right? Well, this creepypasta takes the cake as far as those stories are concerned. It's a tale of a player who was attempting to capture a Charmander, which at the time when the game was released was a really uncommon Pokemon in his neighborhood. After seeing the silhouette of one pop up on his phone screen, the player set out to capture that Charmander by any means necessary. His search led him to an abandoned house at the end of his street. I never thought much of this house, but he always knew it was empty, and some of the younger kids on his block used to make up stories about how it was haunted. Not really caring for that stuff, he entered the property and began his search. It led him out to the backyard of the house, to a rundown shed. Thinking he had nabbed that Charmander, he took a few steps closer to the shed, but wasn't close enough. So he thought, screw it, I'm just gonna go inside. No one owns it anyway. And lo and behold, what he saw traumatized him for the rest of his life. Inside that shed was a bunch of blood-covered saws hanging on the walls, and on the floor, in front of his feet, was what appeared to be a body wrapped in a blood-stained blanket, all collected together with duct tape. Panicking, he ran off the property and called the police. And he never managed to catch that Charmander either. Alright, there we have it, friends. Pokemon creepypastas. If you guys have a Pokemon creepypasta you think we should read, make sure you give us a shout in those comments below and tell us what you think. And if you guys dug this video, spread that love, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Gaming for more lists just like this one. In the meantime though, thanks for watching, friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.